In this video, we're going to be looking at printing and page options. You will be asked to print out some of your work, so it's quite important that you do so and you follow the instructions and you save as much paper as possible. So let's get started. Now, I've got a sheet here, it's just a list of names, it's memberships, and I want to print it out. So I could, first of all, highlight what I want to print out in this example. I'll go down here, highlight everything. I don't want to include my notes down the side here, just the information here. And if I go to File and then Print, and you'll notice settings, it has been set to print selection because I have chosen to use these particular cells to print off. You will notice from the drop down arrow that you can print selection the entire workbook or just the active sheet. So when you are printing, think about what you're selecting, what you need. Now, as I'm looking at this with my print selection, and I can see down at the very bottom, I can see here page 1 of 2. This is not going to print out on one page. There's a few things we can do to try and improve this and to try and make it fit on one page ourselves. And what we could do, might be sensible, is to change from portrait orientation and turn it to landscape. So looks better, I can see that. Still it's not quite working. But as I look at it and I'm thinking, membership amount, that's an awful wide column, and so is payment. Do I need it to be as wide as that? Well, no, I don't. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back and I'm just going to, let's just narrow this. And you see these, well, it was just there before, the dotted line. The dotted line tells me the sort of the edge of my printing page, but I can just make this narrower. I have put here wrap text, we showed you that earlier, so let's just make the columns a little bit narrower and see if that works. Let's just try again and we'll just go to print. Oops, now you see what I've done there is I have forgotten to go back. At the moment I'm only highlighting cell E3, so I need to remind myself to go back to the data I want to print, and I'm going to try again. So let's go File, Print selection. Oh, we're almost there. So it's still page 1, page 2. What's happened this time? Goodness me, we're just slightly too many rows, not quite going to work. So what else could we do? Well, what we could do perhaps is we could try and adjust the margins. That might be helpful. So if I go into margins here, click the downward arrow, you'll see there that's normal, that's the default. I could go to custom margins and I could start, maybe trying to make maybe make sort of left and right smaller to give me more space. We could do that way, top and bottom. So you've got options there. But notice what you've also got at this section of margins is if you wanted to center your work at this point, you could do that. Now I'm going to come back to that in a moment, but what I'm still trying to do is I'm still trying to get my selection of data onto one sheet. So the next thing you can do is actually use the scaling. Alright, in scaling you will see with the drop down option that you have no scaling as it is now. You can ask it to fit the sheet on one page, it will shrink it to make it fit, which is fine unless you've got lots and lots of information. It becomes too small. We could fit all columns onto one page or fit all rows. Well, our columns already fit, so let's just go for fit all rows on one page. And finally, we have got our document. I can see 1 of 1. That is telling me that this is going to fit on one page before I print. Now you'll notice in this print section here, there's also page setup. And if you click on page setup, it will open up the dialog box where there's various things here. So, for example, the portrait and landscape. You can also do scaling. You could adjust it and have it to fit. That's 91% of normal size. You can play a bit with scaling to make it fit, and also the paper quality. We've got margins again, and now here we are back to center on page. So if you're asked to center your work, you can center it horizontally, and as I click on horizontal, if you look in the middle, the grey sort of boxes there in the middle, and then you can actually center it vertically as well. So it's smack bang in the middle of your sheet. So let's have a little look and see what that looks like. Back to page setup again, I'm back in again. So we've had a look at page we've had a look at margins and centering, and then we've also got the option of adding a header or a footer. Now when you're printing work for the SQA for your teacher, they will probably ask you to make sure you put your name and school, task, whatever, as a footer it is normally. You just go into custom footer, and then you can put it in the left, in the centre and in the right. You've also got options there. If you see there, you can put the date in, you can put the time in. It's just a wee formula actually, and you won't see this, well, in fact if I press OK now and then press OK, you'll see what it looks like. We've got the date and we've got the time at the bottom, and you can see that. You won't see that in your sheet like that. It is only when you go to print it that you'll be able to see that. So I'm back into page setup again. Alright, so we've got page, margins, the header, footer, how to do that, and then we've also got the sheet. Now, sometimes you're asked to print with grid lines, which is the grey boxes, and sometimes you're asked to print with the row and column headings, or a combination. So if I was to tick grid lines, and I was to tick row and column headings, and then press OK, look and see what happens. Now I can actually see the columns and the rows and the grid lines. Back to page setup, back to sheet. If I untick, and I'll move this out of the way just for a moment, if I untick the grid lines, alright, and then you can see what happens when you take them off. They've come off, but the row and column headings are still on. Or it might well be we go back into sheet and then we leave the grid lines, but we take off the row and column headings, and then you'll see it that way. So all these things you can do to your sheet in the printing options section of Excel. Now, somewhere else you can go, because you'll find these options in other places. If we look up here at page layout, we click on that tab, you will also see you can change the margins and the orientation and the size, etc, etc. So in the page layout section you have all these options, including scaling to fit, including the sheet options. If I go into the dialog box under sheet options, I'm back where I was a couple of minutes ago. There it is there. If I click on the page setup dialog box, click on that one there, and again you have the same. So there's lots of routes to get to your page setup, getting ready for printing. So that is a little help here on printing and page option, and I hope that helps.